episode of Larp Chat Live. Today we are on episode 9, HLG Con Preview. So we're all at different locations right now. So to help start us off, I'm going to bring on one of our co-hosts, Mari. So Mari, take it off and explain a little bit more about what's going on today.
Hey, this is Mari. I am literally on the side of the road on the way to HLG Con. So if things cut out or be a little strange, please forgive me, because this is the glamorous life of a Larp designer. In the van are all the bins for our escape room and the things that are going, and you get to do it's like over on the side of the road and learning how it goes. So I'm here to talk about HLG Con and also to talk a little bit about the Safe Event Initiative. And then we're so lucky to have with big ears for HLG Con and big visionaries in North America.
Woo! All right, and I think we do have two guests here. We have Joe and Ryan to start off with. Ryan, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, my name is Ryan Hart, and I spend a little bit of my time every day on Larp. So, I'm going to HLG Con. I'll be there with Maury, Joe, and then a whole bunch of other people. The event that I've been kind of organizing with Tara, as well as Imagination Collective, Hanging Lantern, Peculiar Crossroads, Reverie, and the Hanging Lantern. I'm missing one. Event Horizon. How could I forget Event Horizon? Went out of alphabetical orders with Pandemonium, and we're also doing a whole bunch of marquee LARPs. I'd like to talk about my marquee LARP as well, 1032, a little bit about that. Talk also about kind of North American LARP in general and all the stuff going on. And be helping Joe out with Hodophobe. I also have a Kickstarter that some people might have heard about for something called the Mortality Machine, which I'll mention at least.
All right. Okay, cool. All right, and we also have Joe here, as I mentioned. So, Joe, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, I'm Joe Terranova. I'm on the board of directors for the Winding Path Initiative. We're a new LARP social club that's trying to promote campaign-style parlor LARP. I'll be at the convention helping out with a Vampire the Masquerade game we're running each night, and I'll also be debuting Hold-A-Folk, which is a new urban fantasy parlor LARP I've been working on with quite a while, and I'm very excited to get to show it to people.
Great.
Yeah, Ryan and I are NPCing in Hold-A-Folk, so that's I think we're on opposite sides, Ryan, aren't we?
I am on the side of truth and light and justice, Maury. I don't know what you're talking
about. Ryan's on the really bad guy side. Maury's on the like middle sort of referee / don't let any of the kids get too strong side. So it'll be fun.
I'm on the side for personal freedom.
Personal freedom. Yes. And with more. Or gives me better favors, right?
That's pretty much what you're up to, yeah, Mari. Seeing what's in it for you.
I don't see how that's evil.
No. So, I did a little bit at the beginning. I do learn LARP at HLG Con. We are doing our storytelling escape room called Detention Breakout. And I know I'm excited about some blends that might happen between LARPing and escape rooms, and LARPing and immersive theater, and sort of the way LARP is kind of wanting to go the U.S. So we've both been exploring some of those intersections, and I think escape room folks are ready to try. A lot of times they're set up with a premise, but you don't necessarily role play. Some people are scared of role play and go to escape rooms for the puzzle, but I think the folks that are really addicted to the genre are ready for something a little new. So we have an optional role play element with people can try.
Cool. All right.
Tell us what about Pandemonium, Ryan, and the vision for what Pandemonium is in terms of North American LARP.
I think that Pandemonium is relatively well named because it comes from Milton's Paradise Lost, where all the devils are. So we kind of got everybody together. We got a bunch of people together. We got 6 studios together back, I think, in February. And really, what the idea was is we had talked to Josh. He had put together HLG Con, and he knew we wanted to do a convention, and he was friends with Tara and Tara Clapper, and Tara kind of reached out to a number of people and said, "Hey, you should be talking to these," and then everybody started talking to Josh, and then our idea was 6 of us would come together and write a larger game that would go on 2 nights, and then we also do marquee larps during the day, and it kind of bounced around a little bit. The idea morphed slightly, and then we until we finally around May started working on the game itself. We come up with a 1980s period piece that's kind of an homage to the horror and supernatural films of the time, almost a bit like Stranger Things, where everybody is playing a different faction that gets sucked into this other realm and has to figure out how to get out. I've been purposely keeping it a little bit mysterious and purposely playing a little bit with form on it. But we got a bunch of people coming into Atlantic City day after tomorrow. Some of them are getting there tomorrow night, who are all going to be ready to go. We have the foundation room, same room as go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Were you finished?
Yeah, I'm good.
In general. So, I wanted to say, in terms of LARP cons, there are very few cons that are devoted to LARP, just LARP, and have LARP important. And HLG Con is a new con this is one of the things that's different about HLG Con, is that you can go to things like Intercon and you can play of generally a particular style. It's mostly secrets and powers, parlor style, theater style LARP. But the HLG Con is trying to showcase many different kinds of LARP and many different LARP studios. So like you said, there's the 6 studios that are collaborating on as becoming an industry, and not just people doing it for each other form. Then getting these studios together, but in both to do their own LARPs that they're doing, but also to try to combine, work together towards this thing that we're all sort of tossing around, is this notion of, American freeform, and what that means. As I think we're at HLG Con are trying to move LARP away from the idea of hitting people with sticks in the woods, and not from an existing, but it's not the only thing that comes to mind. And we have, in addition to the Pandemonium LARP, we have the Blood and Betrayal. Maybe Joe could talk a little bit about Blood and Betrayal and why they came on to HLG Con and what's different about them in terms of.
Okay. So Winding Path Initiative is running Vampire the Masquerade. The main thing that's different is Blood and Betrayal hasn't quite been launched yet by By Night Studios and White Wolf, but the main idea is that the By Night Studios writers are going to be running a chronicle that a number of clones and troops can be part of. Over the years, the vampire community has gotten a little fractured, so it's going to give an option for groups to sort of play together under one roof again. While we're waiting on that, Winding Path Initiative is trying to promote Vampire, get more people playing. So the first thing I'll say is that the main goal of us running Vampire here is for Vampire players that wanted to come and try out the game from the region, and for potential new LARPers that are coming. I will say that Pandemonium should be awesome, and if you are a LARPer coming for that, you should absolutely go try it out. I would be going to play it if we weren't running Vampire. Right, but most of the people I know from Pandemonium I knew as Vampire players. I knew Ryan from Vampire, and Mark and Kathy and all of them. It's all old hat for us. But people that don't know Vampire, it's been a Parlor Larp game for around 25 years. It's a gothic horror game. It is a very strongly character versus character game, especially for characters across the different sects. The Camarilla, which is more political, versus the Sabbat, which is more like blood, death cult, and savage and horrific. So if you know Vampire, the game is going to be a combined Camarilla and Sabbat game. You can play either night. The focus is going to be Camarilla on Friday and Sabbat on Saturday. If you don't know Vampire, the premise for the game is that a group called the Haven Project has been secretly training vampires that were created and left on the streets, and is now presenting them to the Camarilla and Sabbat for them to decide which one they want to join. If you're currently a LARPer, it's a very easy game to pick up. If you're used to freeform, there are character sheets for Vampire, but they're very streamlined. They're nowhere near as complex as a normal tabletop game would be. If you've played Vampire before, we're using the By Night Studio system that came out in 2013. So if you haven't played since before that, come check it out to see how things got streamlined and updated in the system and setting, or just come jump into a Vampire game. If you've played Vampire ever in your life, it's pretty easy to jump in again. But if you're brand new, we've tried to make it very easy to jump in. We'll have pre-made characters for everyone, and it'll be very easy to jump into the setting. And we'll be running Vampire in the Harlem Ballroom on Friday and Saturday night in a nightclub setting. We have a very strong group of players coming from Philly and Jersey, and should be a pretty awesome time. But yeah.
All right.
Mari, I think you're muted.
Mari is muted.
I'm talking and no one can hear me. All right. Do we have a Halloween theme going a little bit at HLG Con?
I think it's just that time of year, but we definitely have one for Pandemonium. I don't think we have one in the marquee games that I see, but I definitely think there's definitely some sort of, I mean, it's that time of year, although you couldn't tell it. I have my hoodie that's next to me right now. My hoodie is not working yet. It's too hot. So hopefully that changes this weekend. Get the ocean breeze. It should be cooler down there.
I can't wait to see the ocean. Atlantic City, I haven't been in years, so it is right there in the heart of the East Coast, and so it's a place that, and of course, this is the venue where Changeling LARP is going to be in April of 2019. So why don't we? So the way the con works is that Pandemonium's a big game that's designed by 6 studios, right? And then we have the By Night Studios LARP, and then we have these other studios that are also running LARPs, some of which are called marquee LARPs. Then you have the Whole Du Folk and Arc Song and a few others that are there. And we basically have blocks, like you can play in the morning, you can play in the afternoon, and then in the evening, Pandemonium or Vampire. And so let's mention a few of the others that are available at HLG Con. I will say a little bit about Kindling by Hanging Lantern Studios, and then we'll let you talk about 1032, Ryan. Best known for doing Real Royalty earlier this year, and they'll be doing another LARP in 2019 in the Columbus, Ohio. And they're bringing to HLG Con is a LARP that deals with the struggle between superstition and the inevitable need for progress in a post-apocalyptic. I think we have a bit of a post-apocalyptic theme potentially going on here at HLG Con too. So after the world has ended in flame and destruction, survives such as subway stations. One such community is now threatened by the very beings that caused the catastrophe, also unsettled by the emerging. Kindling explores the relationships within a community in a world where the good of the many and the fight for survival in a harsh world with superstition. So that sounds like a lot of fun and a lot of intrigue. It's actually got a tiny bit similar, maybe, to do a little bit with 32, or was it one of the other ones that I'm thinking? Tell us about 1032, Ryan.
Oh, 1032 is 1032 It's designed by Jason, my partner, Jason Knox. And it kind of came to be as in we were working on Project Essential, which is very poppy in many ways. A lot of the LARPs that we do, particularly the blockbusters, I would say that they have to have a very broad appeal. Generally, you identify with some sort of IP or genre, or you have to have a hook. So when we got a chance to scale down, we're like, well, what do we want to talk about? So we're doing a LARP about race relations and gun violence in the United States. Nice, light fare, right? Jason worked on it as designer, and then we had Catalina Mermelstein and Michael Underwood also did some writing for us. So shout out to them. So we had a lot of writers on a relatively small LARP that kind of worked for the style that we were going for and the perspectives that we wanted to bring in, and definitely wanted to get the perspective of different people. So without giving too much away, what it is we're using androids as a screen. We're doing, well, I can give it all away. What it is we're setting it in a sci-fi universe to deal with the problems of that there's going to be a bunch of white people who look like me playing in this game that we were on to say, all right, how are we going to do this? So Jason came up with the idea of using androids and that metaphor for marginalization. And then there's going to be interactions between people who are going to the mall, androids are working the mall, protesters there, and everything's going on. And then the thing that we really want to do is we want to turn it up and say, all right, so we have all this. This is right after the Las Vegas shootings. So we said, all right, in the middle of this situation, we're going to do an active shooter exercise in the middle of it. So we have that figured out. So we've been working on the safety over there for that. So it's about an hour-ish game with about a 2-hour brief and another hour debrief. So that's what we're doing. Nice light fare, right?
Nice light fare. That is intense.
So, but I mean, it's the sort of thing that's not commercially viable.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's this type of thing that you can't really do commercially. And we were talking about the professionalization of the industry and how, it's important that LARPs, when you do it, is commercially viable, and how do you do projects that aren't commercially viable. So this was a good chance to do a project that was really important to us, that there's just no way that we could develop or pay the writers if it wasn't part of a larger whole, but being part of HLG Con, we were able to do. It's probably a very expensive LARP for only what turned out to be 15 people. It turned out to be a lot of development and a good amount of money into it, but at the same point in time, we're very happy with the product.
Sometimes you can reuse those things, and sometimes you can end up realizing that they're good for something else after. I know as a teacher, we have to do some accumulations that are not as intense as what you're talking about. They're just like, imagine. And we do ways that they have changed now to encourage you to run and to throw things at the shooter and to take an active part against the shooter to make and just talking about it with students is intense. So to simulate that, so your debrief is longer than the simulation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing is that we really want to talk about the topics that we have in LARP, and this is one of the things that I beat my drum about ad nauseum, is that we have a tendency in LARP, all across LARP, to be okay with violence if it's a certain type of violence, and that we believe that certain types of violence we can accept, particularly when it's organized in an expected manner. Like we say, it is acceptable for these people to encounter violence. And we play them, and we play soldiers, we play revolutionaries, we play people who are going to engage in what we call combat. But we never necessarily figure out what the effect is of that, or there is some toxicity to that. There is a price we pay for that. We are promoting a certain type of culture, a certain narrative. So what we really want to do is bring what we said was, all right, there's acceptable and unacceptable violence. And acceptable violence doesn't get a second thought. So we're going to do something that's explicitly with unacceptable violence, And we happen to have two people who both have had weapons pointed at them in remarkably different situations.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to kind of say, all right, we can do this. Like, I mean, there's people who have been personally affected, but I know people. There's people at the top personally affected by active shooters. But at the same point in time, I think that this is something that needs to be brought out to a certain degree. It's exploration of the effects of violence. Wow! I got real serious. It's supposed to be funny.
Yeah, you did. It's kind of
Well, I agree with. Yeah. So we were all sort of just taking that in for a moment.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Halloween.
Yeah,
let's talk about Halloween.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just like,
No, but I mean, LARP. That's one of the things LARP can do.
Yeah.
Is to let us address some of these social issues, and by because LARP is an embodied medium, right? And so you experience it as if it's really happening, which makes it intense, but it gives us a huge responsibility. Which is, well, let's just segue real quick to that before Shoshana jumps on, is that I think HLG, one of the things that they recognized was that, and Winding Path Initiative as well, is that at LARP and does provoke. I mean, let's face it. No matter even really lighthearted LARPs or LARPs about Halloween, right? Provoke strong experiences and strong emotions and issues, even when they aren't like your LARP. That LARP you just described is designed to deal with social issues, right? But even LARPs that aren't designed to deal with social issues end up bringing up things like marginalization, and all of our players come from different experiences. But did you want to say something about that, Jess?
No, I'm just not. It's like the emphatic nodding. It's like, yes, LARPs that are not social justice LARPs end up becoming social justice LARPs because of some of the underlying themes that most of us who are white and middle class take for granted. And then all of a sudden we realize these metaphors that we think are fantasy have real life impact when it comes to a type of players that decide they want to participate. And now we have to go, oh crap, how do we handle this?
And I think with a thing like HLG, where you have all these different studios and different kinds of LARPs coming together, people have different play styles, right? Because like Joe was talking about, vampires very much a character versus character, and then some other people don't play games that they play games that are a little bit more collaborative, perhaps in style. And so one of the things that you, Ryan, with Pandemonium, and that Josh did with HLG Con in general, was to say, hey, we need to have safety workshops. And this is, to my knowledge, con that I know of that has said, if you're going to participate in our LARPs, then you need to attend a safety workshop. Because safety workshops are about teaching people how to play together as people. And they're essential and then it appears that that's the general view for HLG Con and Pandemonium, is that they are essential because they establish this baseline that lets people have a really understand how to play the experience. So tell us a little bit about the structure that's going on, Ryan, about how people do a safety workshop and what you thought about when you did that.
Yeah, we have a safety workshop. It's a standardized safety workshop that you actually developed and wrote. A lot of it comes from all of it comes from you. So I guess all of it comes from right? So I'm like, what's the distinction? I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, so what we're going to do is there's commonalities in safety. So we're all using the same workshop with the idea that you can go to any one of the workshops and play in any of the games that are using that common workshop. So you don't actually have to go to a safety workshop before Pandemonium. We'll have just kind of a game workshop where you go over, here are some mechanics, here's some character building, all right, go nuts. As opposed to having to go over, the basics, because you already got that in 1032, or already got that in Kindling, or already got that in Backspin Orbital. So, and it's exciting, and I think we're moving towards that. I think that's something that's going to be more and more as things become kind of standardized and the language gets formalized. It's just something to realize. So.
One thing that's nice about it is you recognize that at this con, multiple LARPs, and so it can be boring, or people can tune out if they start getting safety briefings over and over again. At the very turning it into its own workshop, you also give them the chance to streamline that experience and also to get some commonality across the games. I mean, yes, I developed it with you guys, but I mean, you guys were all collaborative in making sure that these were all things that you wanted to do and to enforce. And got a lot of great help from your team, especially in terms of the pronoun correction section. So I'm looking forward to having that, and hopefully, like you said, to seeing that happen with maybe with a few more cons or LARP events.
Yeah. Shoshana's here.
Yeah.
I want to say wave and say hi.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going? I hope I'm on time.
Yeah, you're on time. Don't worry, we're good.
We can segue and go ahead and you tell us who you are and what you're doing at HLG Con.
Sure. So, hi, I'm Shoshana Kasak, and at HLG, my team and I, Phoenix Outlaw Productions, are going to be running our game Arc Song on Saturday morning. We're really excited to bring. It's a sci-fi space adventure set in in the 23rd century, while humanity has split up into these different cultures out among the stars. So we're really excited to bring our little piece of space to HLG.
Woo-hoo.
Tell us how many people.
What's that?
I'm sorry. I think Jess was going to talk, and I have a bit of a lag, so I'm going to.
No, I was like, woohoo!
Cool. Yeah.
I think the question was like, how many people? Yeah, I was about to say, I think the question was, how many people are you expecting for this LARP?
I'm not sure. We know that a bunch of our regular players are coming, which we're really excited about. We have, our first event at another convention recently had about 80 players. So we're hoping that we're going to get a few people to come down. It looks like we have a number of them that emailed us and are excited to play, but I don't have the full numbers yet, actually. So we're prepping as, we'll run for whoever shows up. If there's only a few people, they're going to have a hell of an experience. If there's a lot of people, we're used to running for big groups. So either way, we're ready for whatever happens.
What's the premise, Shoshana, of the module that you're running at HLGCon?
Sure. So Arc Song itself is about, it's a universe in where, there was a giant war that happened only a few years before, and all these cultures that have developed out across the galaxy sort of were fighting for who was going to have supremacy when these two groups went to war with one another. There was a particular event that happened that sort of stopped the war. And it was a terrible tragedy. And due to some events that are going on that you'll find out more about at game, the players are going to get it. Yeah, exactly. The players are going to get a chance to experience the last night on this planet called Senkaio before the destruction of this planet. So everybody gets to sort of live through what I've been calling the last night of Saigon, basically, like this terrible, like, tragedy, horrible moment. But they get to see what it's like, at the end of a world before it all goes to hell. So we're excited. It's a very tragic, but with a lot of moral choices and a lot of things that the players will get. And like I said, a bunch of these people have played their characters before, so they're going to show up and be like, how the hell did we end up on Senkaio, and what does this mean? So for those who are coming who have played before, there's a lot of backstory that they'll be able to bring in and help the new players get in as well. And there's also easy accessibility for anybody who's new as well. So we're prepared for both, which I'm excited to accommodate for everybody who comes.
Cool. That actually is a tiny bit into, we've got a couple of the other LARPs that are going on that have some slightly similarities there. So the Space another LARP by Event Horizon is doing their Backspin Orbit Invitational, which is, I don't know, I always LARP, but I know they're not pod They're not pods. It's a spaceship race. It's a spaceship race in the galaxy, and the racing crews have one last night to get their heads in the game. What they don't know is that their ships have a mind of their own. It's a freeform collaborative LARP set in the Event Horizon universe, and over the course of the game, players will strive to improve the morale and teamwork of their race crew, private moments with their ship, and collaboratively build the story of the race. The LARP uses the hack of the kids' game, which, yeah, but it sounds very fun. Something bad is going to happen at some point. They're going to many things and go, but that one's in space. Now, our Arc Song is obviously they're completely different universes. But you said the hellish last night, and that's part of what made me think about it. And Reverie Studios is doing Ryan, how long's their LARP? Is their LARP like 6 hours?
No. Their LARP is, I believe, noon to 6. 6 hour LARP.
Yeah. 6 hour LARP. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a double entendre, cog in the machine, but it's also a continuation of government. That's what their concept is. So, high concept. It's one I wanted to play, but then I'm like, damn it, part of my life. I couldn't get into that one, so I'm doing something else at that point in time. It's brand new.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's so hard about this con is that there's so many good LARPs here. And so like when we were doing the storytelling escape room, I was like, where can I put the escape room so that people can do it between LARPs, right? Because escape room is just an hour. And it's like, there's never really a time. Like, so one of the times we're running the escape room is at 11 o'clock at night when our LARP lets out. And lets out. And it's like, if you're still on a high and you want to do one more thing, then you can hit the escape room for an hour. But the schedule is really packed with a lot of games. I want to talk about Hold the Folk, and the one last LARP that we haven't talked about is Scion, and then I'd like to close with Ryan telling us a little bit about Mortality Machine. What'd I do?
Nothing. Hold the Folk and Scion have a lot of similarities as far as themes. So, yeah.
Scion and Hold the Folk have a lot of similarities?
They might both involve being characters that work for higher powers that are trying to get you to push their ideals on Earth.
Correct.
Correct.
Just a little bit. And Godslayer was going to be a tune on. Godslayer is a LARP that's in development by Old Crone Studios, which is a new studio that's got Barbara Perez Marquez is starting, and that LARP is a bit of a wicked and divine send up with Greek god pantheons. So, in fact, Joe, or Ryan wants to talk about Scion, or anybody who knows more about Scion than me can talk.
So Scion's an officially licensed game. Is the cool thing about Scion.
Yes.
And I'm trying to remember who owns it right now, because the IP is an old White Wolf.
Yeah, it was originally like White Wolf.
Yeah, who is it now?
It's Onyx Path these days.
Yeah,
as far
I
as
think
I
so.
know.
Yay!
Yeah, I think so too. Is Onyx Path, yeah.
And it's actually an officially licensed game. And I've seen the materials for it. The materials are pretty cool. And it has some mechanics. I come to Scion from a kind of a different stance. Scion, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Scion, Aberrant, and what was the other one? All
Exalted
work together. Exalted. Like everything was kind of the same.
Sort of. The Exalted was set in like a mythical ages past where you're working for gods, and Scion is very much the modern urban fantasy where you're in the regular world and just happen to be the son of Zeus or something.
Yeah, and I always kind of like that because I remember Shadowrun and Earth Dawn. If anybody, I'm dating myself right now. Oh God, shut up, Brad.
At least
right.
someone
I
is.
know what it is too. So. So basically, this is Imagination Nation Collective, and they have licensed to do an American freeform system for Scion. And this is the very first public test of that system, and adapting the tabletop RPG world and creating these sets of narratives. And you portray people who've been chosen by the gods to represent the interests of that deity on Earth. And they deal with supernatural threats such as monsters and antagonists acting on behalf of these titans. They end up in direct conflict with the chosen ones of the other gods and the pantheons. So that's the premise. And Imagination has up to 100 characters and 15 different scenarios right now. So we're getting one of those scenarios at HLG Con, and it's pretty cool that it's debuting there. To see the tabletop going in the direction of something that's got negotiation and compromise, and then a sacrifice system and a tarot card system for conflict resolution. Which one of the things that excites me about these games that are coming into AG Cons, they have these really cool tarot card resolution or Kerplunk, whatever they're going to do with Kerplunk, and like bringing someone who knows how to do active shooter simulations, or changing up vampire. And these things are, LARP is really expanding in the US. So tell us about Hold a Folk, Joe.
All right, so Hold a Folk came out of a kind of weird idea for me. I heard this podcast called Lore, and they were talking about how in Iceland, about 80% of the population believe that there are these invisible people called Hold a Folk that live alongside them. And they live inside boulders, and like they route around entire road projects based on whether they think the Hold a Folk live there. It's a pretty big deal. And they're basically, the legend is that Adam and Eve had more kids. They didn't just have two. But those other kids, the day God showed up, were dirty. So they just sort of hid them in the bushes, and God gave his oblique, what man hides from God, God will hide from man, and snaps his fingers and these kids become invisible. And I thought of that, and I was like, that's a really cool setup for a LARP. So in the Hold a Folk setup, it's basically these invisible people have been around humanity since creation. They've been all over the world. Iceland is just where they were closest to humanity. And for various times in history, and at least in the modern day, most of them live in a society that has two big factions, the Blessed and the Banished. The Blessed, who are trying to influence humanity towards good, and the Banished that are trying to influence humanity towards evil, in a kind of weird setup. Well, influence humanity towards something different, Ryan. They don't necessarily believe in everyone's interpretation of good. But essentially, there are, on each side, there are three different groups, because no one can really agree to what evil or good look like. So you've got the ones that say, we influence humanity towards being good by helping those in need. And we influence humanity towards being good by improving technology and adding progress to society. Or we influence humanity towards being good by finding all of the evil people and killing the crap out of them. So the game is set up to have a very strong political conflict in the game, both in terms of Hold a Folk society and how they want to solve problems in the world. For example, the big conflict at this game is that it's set in 2016, and Atlantic City is having a new election for mayor, and the current mayor is this corrupt as hell guy that's almost got convicted for murder and has been with mobsters and stuff. And the two opponents are one that wants to start using Atlantic City's revenues to help the poor and needy and give education and stuff, and another one that wants to add a monorail and improve add a bunch of swanky lofts and stuff to try to bring more businesses into the community. And so you have these social quandaries that all of the players can get involved with and try to influence either way. It comes out largely influenced from our background as World of Darkness LARPers, and some of the things we're trying to do are have a competitive game that still has a very strong collaborative element. So the system, instead of having rock, paper, scissors or anything more complex than that, everyone has a deck from 1 to 10, and that's all they have for the game. and whenever they want to do something, they pick one of those cards and draw it in order to decide how good they are at that thing. So you only get 10 shots to do something per game if you're using the system. So it sort of pushes people to do more collaborative, like mediation for the stuff that they want to do that's dramatic, but doesn't really affect how like their character ends up at the end. But you still have, for the stuff that you want to get really competitive, you can go back to that. And the other thing we were trying to push was in a collaborative, you have the play to lose, and in the competitive, you have the not exactly play to win, but you want to win out at the end of the day. But we find that people are often afraid of losing big, losing their character, being out of play. So we tried to make sure there were a lot of options for losing small if you want to take risks, and that character death was extremely rare to try to get people to be a little more willing to get competitive. But it should be a really great time. I grabbed some of the more notorious hardcore role players I could think of. I grabbed Ryan, Mari, Erica Skirpin, Jason Hughes. We've got Jeremy White to be our really loud, really angry antagonist.
What side is Erica on?
Erica is on the good side.
Six.
Well, so
Six.
the fun story is that you're not necessarily born a Huldafolk. You might be a mortal that was stolen for the Huldafolk world by one of the Banished, the bad guys. And Ryan's character actually stole Erica from the mortal world, and she eventually
Procured.
I see where this is going.
He, quote, procured her by having her kill an innocent person, then ask a demon to make her into a hidden person. And she eventually got away from him. So you'll be the boogeyman for her on the other side of the room. But yeah, this first time we're showing it off. We're really excited to see how the system comes out in play and to see how the politics go. And our goal is to have it as another campaign-style networked game that people are playing all around the country. So we'll see what people are interested in when it hits the tarmac.
Sweet, that's exciting.
Yeah.
All right. So just looking at the time, Ryan, I understand that you have a Kickstarter that you're working on. Tell us a bit more about that. And while you do that, I can actually load it up on the screen here, or at least try to.
Thank you so much.
Let's see.
So there I go. Thank you for bringing that for the opportunity. We have a week left on our Kickstarter for the Mortality Machine, which we've been talking about almost nonstop the past 3 weeks, and we'll talk for another 9 days about. What we're trying to do is change kind of what we think of in terms of LARP by saying, what is a LARP, and stripping down some of the stuff to make something that's very accessible, give it to the general public so that a LARPer can play it and still have all the narrative and enjoyment of the primarily the cathartic elements, but also allow somebody to walk it off the street and not have to go through a lot of different learning paths in order to be able to start playing and kind of get absorbed up into this narrative. And then what we're going to do is, instead of running it as a LARP normally would, which would be once, maybe longer duration, we're running it over the course of 2 hours over and over and over again in New York City as an immersive theater off-Broadway production. So we're learning how to produce off-Broadway, off-Broadway to be technical because we're not union. And everything goes along with that. We have our own venue called Wildrance, which is the only, to my knowledge, immersive space that's built to receive other explicitly received immersive shows. And this Kickstarter is really helping us fund it. We have enough funding to go up. We successfully meet our goal of 9,000. Right now, we're really pushing towards 15, which lets us do a couple big things. First, it lets me pay some of the designers, and that's just always good. Pay all your people. I want to pay them what they're worth. I want to give them their money up front, as opposed to right now a lot of them they have like a basis and then they have points on top, and that way I could say, all right, I can guarantee your points at this many tickets if I get this much money, and then I can make it back and pay myself back. And then the other thing that I really want to do, and the thing we're doing first, everybody knows, is that the Mortality Machine is named for the Epidemius device that you will find in this Canal Street basement when you journey into Chinatown to discover the mysterious world of the mortality machine. And as you go in to find out what happened to some long lost loved ones, you'll encounter this strange device. And we are working on making a fully functional mortality machine, whatever that might mean. So that's really what we're doing this last push for. So we're really excited about it. Tickets are expensive. They're trying to do something on the production level that New Yorkers expect, the level of professionals that New Yorkers expect in immersive theater. But the Kickstarter is going well. We've got a lot of local support and looking for, just that last big push to get us to that 15K mark.
So I think what I heard was that if you raise enough money, you're going to create a machine that brings people back from the dead, right? That was the promise?
In theory.
Yeah,
All right,
in theory. I'm like,
You'll
I'll
be
tell
able
you
to-
what, you come to me and let's see if I got you to believe I can bring people back from the dead.
Sweet. Yeah, what I'm really excited for Mortality Machine. Like, so in some ways for the public, the LARP is kind of a bad word. I either get lightning bolt, or discussions about role models. And so what I'm really excited for, like, because if people go to an escape room like the Neuro Magiscola one, or if they go to a Ren fair and interact with someone or any of those things, you have a lot of stuff that are like halfway to LARPing. And whenever you do something that's near LARPing, but you don't call it LARP, people really enjoy it. So my hope with stuff like Mortality Machine, because we've seen it a little bit with Sleep No More, which is a sort of similar production, is that people are more than willing to jump into the audience for these immersive theater events. And I'm looking forward to it, and I'm hoping LARPers support it to try to get some more people interested in LARPing.
And we're calling it live action role play. We don't use the word LARP because that's like saying ATM to somebody who doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
They're like, it's the ATM, and they're like, it's the automatic teller machine, and they're like, all right, the money machine. So LARP is still considered an acronym by many. So that's the one thing that we don't have the marketing. But usually what we do is we get them in, and then we start calling it a LARP around them. And it's in there in the literature and the FAQ that this is a LARP. Live action role play is right there in the lead line. So.
I'm not accusing you of secreting people into LARP. I'm just
Burying
that,
the LARP.
Whoa.
So
I have a story.
Back to life with the machine.
Yeah.
I will pretend that I can raise the dead, but I won't pretend that I'm not a LARPer. But the interesting thing about what we found when we're doing the marketing for Mortality Machine is there were exactly two camps. I talked to just under a dozen professional marketers in New York City in the theater market. Not LARP marketers, not general marketers, not game people. I'm talking theater people saying, how do I sell tickets to a show? And there was one issue they were divided on. Is, do we call it a LARP? Okay.
Yeah.
And to a person, they were right down the middle about whether or not they had LARP before. Because there are people who had done like museum installations, who had come from the LARP world. There's a lot of crossover there. A lot of experienced designers are come from the LARP world or have a lot of experience. And to a person, the people who I talked to who had LARP before said, don't call it a LARP. Nobody will come. They'll make fun of us. And everybody else is like, no, you should totally call it a LARP. Immersive theater is so 2012. You should call it a LARP. People are ready for something new.
I mean, so I see the hype around, the one that gets me excited is I see the hype around Disney's Star Wars Hotel, where you're basically playing a LARP your entire trip. And I see a lot of a mainstream group that's very excited for that. So I think it's getting more mainstream. I do agree with you with just spelling out live action role play instead of LARP. I've been trying to do that in everything I've done. But yeah, I could definitely see go with live action role play. I think as long as you don't make it an acronym, the people that have that instinctive reaction to the lightning bolt video won't catch on until they're already in. And I think it'll go a little better.
The other thing that I noticed, and I have to get going here in a minute, so I'll leave everybody with this thought. Somebody told me, I think I want to contribute to Bjarke Peterson, but I can't necessarily do it. But I'm not 100% sure it is. But whoever it was saying, it was Disney said this, is that you have two problems with LARP from being like the killer app of entertainment. If you can invent a LARP where nobody has to read anything, and you never lecture people, you never get up and lecture them, you'll be unbeatable. That everybody will be like, this is what I want to do all the time nonstop. If you take away those two huge barriers of entry, and we will not get there with the mortality machine, but we'll get down to my goal. My goal is 180 seconds of instruction and 100 lines of text, 100 words of text. It's a goal with the mortality machine. Get down to that. And we're working on...
tweets aren't even that short, right? Well,
Yes.
100
tweets
words.
Is characters. That's
Characters, okay.
Characters.
100 words. Yeah, well, yeah, tweets are... But, it'll be longer. Your character should be shorter than most people's Facebook posts.
Yeah.
So, and then I've already talked twice as long as we're going to talk to them before we get started. And really, and when that does it, every single word counts. So you're going through your workshop, you're saying every single word I have counts. And what am I doing while I'm doing that? There's some theater involved in that as well. I think we just lost more.
Yeah, well, we were going to wrap up anyway. So yeah, that was the final thing, was to talk about the Kickstarter.
Thank you
talk
so
about
much.
the project. So with that, since we're getting close to the top of the hour, I think it is time for us to go, since we have a lot of people here who are either going to be at HLG Con on their way or doing last minute prep. So again, it's this weekend, and we look forward to hearing back from everyone on how it goes. I'm going to be in cold Minnesota here. Not going this year, so we'll see if there's a future one. I hope to be able to attend. So with that, yeah.
Thank you so much for having us, Joe. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
Yep,
And again,
tomorrow.
we'll be on here in about 2 weeks for our next LARP Chat Live session. And feel free to like us on Facebook as well to keep track of our news and what's going on in our upcoming episode guide.
Take care, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Have a great night.